Welcome to this video for round, this is 12, right? Round 12, the penultimate round of Weigandsee 2013, or Tata Steel, as it is called nowadays. Yeah, the 12th round, and we got 7 games as usual, and I got the order prepared this time, starting from the least exciting games to the more exciting games. So I'll do 3 games pretty quickly and then do a more detailed analysis on the more interesting ones. So let's start. First game being Leko against Karjakin. Leko playing the Catalan, so not his usual 1e4, but he's nowadays also mixing first moves and his openings a bit to be less predictable. Yeah, Karjakin plays the tried and tested main line, now capturing on c4. This is probably the most reliable line that Black can play. It is not particularly exciting if you want to keep some tension in the position. As Black, this is not the line to play. There are some continuations where Black is very hard pressed to get some active play, but it's very solid. Yeah, Queen c2 is normal, a6, and now Leko took a4 is an important alternative, which is keeping a bit more tension in the game. But Queen c4 is a good move. e5, Queen back, Bishop b7. Yeah, and here White is at the crossroads. He can play various moves, all bishop moves that make sense. Bishop to d2, c4, g5, and Leko opted for bishop d2, which for a couple of years already is believed to be the most promising move. The idea of this move is to keep this option, bishop to a5, attacking the c7 pawn. It also quickly prepares rook c1, and this seems to be the toughest test for Black, but Black has more than one interesting and still solid setup. Karjakin plays one of them, bishop to d6, covering this pawn in anticipation that it is to be attacked. a3, knight bd7, and b4. Yeah, this move surprised me a bit, but okay, it seems to be normal. I looked it up briefly. I was more expecting this kind of setup, but you can question if this is really a good here. Of course, it's this bishop placement, which is often followed by b4, is also yeah, a bit exotic. This bishop can easily be in a bad spot if Black manages to play under the right circumstances, something like, let's say, queen b8 and achieving c5, or after b4 is played. In some cases, Black can play knight b8 to c6 and take this. If you cannot recapture with the piece, then you really have damaged your pawn structure. Yeah, maybe this isn't so great after all, but okay, b4 still surprised me a bit. Knight to b6, knight c3, knight d5, knight a2. Yeah, surprisingly, the idea is that White is probably threatening e4 now, so Black dropped back, and we had a repetition here. But Leko didn't want to draw and takes on d5. There's no anti-draw rule. They basically can make a draw, but it is not very well received by the organizers. So they usually don't make those quick draws in Weig, even without the rules. Knight d5, yeah, and probably maybe knight d5 is actually a mistake in this position. I was very surprised to see that the engine Houdini in this case gave here knight g5, which Leko didn't play, with a huge advantage for white, like almost +1, based on g6, knight e4, and it assesses this position as +1, which really surprised me. I think it is definitely better than the game, because white has quick ideas to get a piece to c5, the knight, and being supported by the queen or probably the rook. And also you manage to weaken the dark square, so that a knight on c5 is not so lightheartedly taken by the bishop, because then you don't have the bishop for defense on the dark squares. I don't really believe this is +1, which is almost a decisive advantage. This is certainly not the case, but white looks better here. But Leko didn't play that. I think it was a chance to get something. He played queen e4 and followed up with knight to e5 and rook b8, and this introduces those discovery ideas. So the queen needed to draw back, and now we got a transposition. Karjakin decides to take this, and yeah, e4. It's not a move you necessarily like to play, but what black is in a way threatening this exchange of the bishops and then getting the knight on c4. So e4 breaks, or breaks is the wrong word, it simply prevents this idea and gets this into play. Yeah, the problem is it is still super solid for black, and white really doesn't have any sort of advantage. Yeah, he temporarily sacrificed the pawn. Now trying to put this knight offside, but Karjakin immediately returns it to give the pawn back and equalize completely. And white cannot really not take. He actually waited a move, but he took on c4. And now we've got material equality. This pawns kill the bishop on b7. But yeah, what exactly is white trying to do here? This is the only thing going for him, and otherwise it's simply dead equal. So a couple of moves later, a draw was agreed. Yeah, a pretty uneventful game, except here this position where probably knight g5 really was something for white. But very curious computer evaluation. +1 is simply ridiculously high for this kind of position type. Okay, let's have a look at Aronian against Giri next. So it starts as yeah, what is this actually? Black hasn't yet determined what he's going to play. Grunfeld, King's Indian. He played c5, in fact, which is a very interesting move, and a move that I would recommend to King's Indian or Grunfeld players as an offbeat, interesting alternative. The point is that if white now advances d5, black has more than one interesting possibility, but one is to play b5, and after taking actually not play the banco with a6, not a bad opening in this case, but you also can play queen a5 and simply regain the pawn, as knight c3, knight e4 leads to a good play for black. So this is an interesting point, and if white doesn't play d5, as Aronian did, you can do this, what Giri played, or you can play queen a5, which is also an interesting line with the same kind of idea, and good play for black. This is in fact a bit of an annoying line for white, but it's not played so often by black players, so an interesting way to unbalance the game. Okay, but Giri took. He decided to play it simple, and here, in fact, it's also interesting. Knight c2 played by Aronian. This looks like a bit of a passive move, but it has got an idea. The problem in this position is if white would castle, it's still this error that I keep making, this grammatical error. If white castles, then black can equalize with d5 with a total symmetry, nothing happening. If white plays knight c3, there's the interesting move queen c7, attacking this pawn, and this is actually really annoying. It has got some tactical points, b3. There's even the funny move d5 with some nice tactical tricks. Something like this is actually losing.
Check.
This is one idea. Or after this, you play e6, and if the bishop retreats, you're in a really deadly pin. So some tricks here. This is why Aronian played knight c2 to have some other move available after queen c7, maybe a knight to e3 or something. Knight c6, and we transpose to a position which normally arises from the symmetrical English. Here white can play knight e3, but also this. And here the normal continuation I think is e4. Yeah, I think e4 is normal here. What Aronian played, I think, was very modest, leading to really not much. He played knight d5, bishop h3, and here you get a slight problem. How do you react to this move? Black is threatening to take probably on g2, and then play knight d5. He took now and played knight to f4, and in this position I don't think that white can really count on much. It's simply that those bishops are off is a problem. This is why I suggested e4. It's not my big idea. It's, I think, the normal way to play this position. After the exchange of the bishops, you usually set up this kind of Maroczy bind with e4 and f3, and king on g2 with this kind of setup, something like this. And the way it has happened now, white is not able to set this up really, because black is simply too quick with counterplay, d5 and e6 d5. You see that this is coming quickly. Yeah, preparing a possible d5. White protects this this square, but now black has even got b5 to put pressure on the c4 pawn. So I think probably Aronian confused something in the opening and got into this, which really is nothing for white. But, we have a couple of more moves where black has improved. He's got this pawn secured, and these pieces are not really well placed. It's not like white is worse, yeah. It's maybe sounds like white is in big trouble. It's simply that's not the case. It's simply that white cannot do much. He's got a very solid position, so he's not running any risks. He now regrouped the knight to b4, where it always protects the slight weakness and blocks the b pawn. Some endgames might even be a bit better for white if b5 is a weakness, but it doesn't materialize. Black is simply too active here. And the knight has got a good central position, and this is why it is kicked away immediately. Yeah, and Giri advances with e5, taking some share in the center. Those knights really don't do much in central control. e4, d5, and white must be cautious to not get into trouble. He exchanged a bit and now played knight g4, which surprised me when I saw the game, but it seems fine. And black's reaction also surprised me. The normal looking this move, but after white recaptures, it's not clear. Maybe this is even something that is helping white a little. It's got this g5 idea and queen d4. And Giri actually played this move, and this is maybe even safer. It simply now attacks f3, so white needs to clarify the situation here. He took on f6, recaptured, and took here. Queen takes, yeah. If knight takes, which looks a bit more natural, maybe because of also queen knight g5 coming. White has got this check and has got this move, and this guarantees white equal position. Got this counterplay against the king, and now the knight is hanging. So in the game there was queen takes e4 played, rook f1, and here draw agreed. Yeah, I think it's a clever draw offer here by Aronian. I think he's in slight discomfort in this position, but it's probably not much. Black can play something like queen e7 attacking this. This knight doesn't have a stable position, and I'm not quite sure what white should play. If he retreats, then black can try to further harass the knight. It's still a very solid position for white and probably will end in a draw, but certainly a good moment to offer, because you have very little hope of achieving more, and well, black is of course also tempted to take it, and a good comfortable draw with black against the world number 3 is not bad. Alright, so this was this game. Let's now look at Harikrishna against Wang. This I can do really quickly, I hope. We got some reti opening, and black took on c4.
Check.
White regained the pawn with this check, and now we have a fairly normal position. d3. Yeah, white plays it in sort of English fashion. You would play, if you play d4, then queen b6, knight to b6 is a bit annoying. Like, it's got really quick play against d4. This is very much like a Grunfeld, where white has moved the queen a bit early. It's no big deal, white can play this, but it's not promising. d3 is a bit more restrained, but it is maybe the move which has better prospects long term, unless, if you look at the game, what's happening. Yeah, here it's hard for white to not exchange queens. If you would play, you played the exchange, but maybe this was a bit more interesting, something like this. Okay, the queen, yeah, it's a bit. The queen doesn't have squares, right? Something like this. With threaten g5 even. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Probably white needs to take. Yeah. Well, then this is just nothing. So we basically got some queenless middle game now, where white's main idea is, of course, to pressurize along the c-file, as it is typical in these Sicilian reversed positions. Yeah, all very standard. Oops, this was too quick. So what is white's idea? He can play on the queen side. Sometimes you can sack the exchange, but normal would be also maneuver like knight to c5 or move the pawns. And black cannot do so much in terms of activity, but he's very solid. He can try to regroup the knight. This is one idea. Maybe to e6 and play c6 to make this queenside position a bit more solid. But frankly speaking, there's not much going on. Yeah, right now took the knight, so it's very hard to make any sort of progress in this position. But,
check, check.
yeah, this is simply very, very drawish, and I think they could have easily agreed around here on the draw, but it continues a bit more. But there's simply nothing happening.
Check.
Yeah, it's some further exchanges.
Check. Check.
Yeah, and here the draw was agreed. So this was one of the most uneventful games of this whole tournament. Yeah, and sometimes it just happens. I think in this kind of position, it's simply about nothing. So white needs to do something else beforehand. This whole setup is not too aggressive, but this was really very little. Maybe you can even think about improvements around here, like knight a3 or something. So I know this is not a serious analysis, but maybe something like this is a bit more interesting. This looks fairly solid for black, really. All right, so I still managed to spend 20 minutes on those snoozes. Yeah, let's look at the other games, which really were more interesting. Let's start with Zukolov against Hou Yifan. Need to pull up my notes here. Okay, so knight f3. Zukolov finally switches from his Rubinstein Nimzo. Yeah, okay, it's not a Nimzo yet, but after knight c3, Hou Yifan of course plays this, and then we would have had the Rubinstein. She certainly wouldn't play the Benoni or get tortured in some Queen's Gambit exchange. So knight f3, Zukolov wants some other position. Maybe this is a good idea to switch from the lines that you keep losing with. d5, knight c3, so we transposed into a Queen's Gambit Rogozin. And h6. This is not the main line, h6, but it's an interesting line. In fact, for a very long time it was thought that white after h6 is supposed to take on f6. And this is queen a4. I think e3 castles, this kind of position. And this is fairly solid for black. It's not super exciting, but it's a solid position that can be recommended for black if you enjoy a solid game. In recent times it seems though that bishop h4 has gained some popularity, and this gets much more imbalance in the position. Here Hou Yifan played d takes c4. It seems that also g5 is an interesting move, trying to increase pressure here on c3 and also keeping this possibility in hand, h5, h4, harassing this bishop. But she took on c4, which is also an interesting idea. Just trying to keep this pawn. And Zukolov played a3. This is, I think, one of the ideas that made this bishop h4 move more popular. They tried moves like e3 before. Takes,
Check.
takes. And here black usually plays the move b5, trying to keep the pawn. But she now introduced a new plan, which is less let's say less sharp. I mean, b5 tries to keep the pawn but compromises your position. She just played c5, trying to complete development and get a solid position, and I think this worked out pretty well. Zukolov now exchanged on f6, which is probably alright. I mean, the position that we get after a couple of moves should be between equal and a very slight advantage. So it's all quite normal. Bishop b5 is designed to prevent black from playing a quick e5, as then white would gain a pawn by capturing on c6 and capturing on e5. And it also threatens at some stage maybe to take and damage the pawn structure. So in any case, bishop d7 is the normal answer. Castles, rook d8. Yeah, now white must stay, must be cautious. a4. It's not a zero move, it covers this bishop. The idea is if white would play some some non-move like h3, then there's knight takes d4 and black wins, because this bishop is hanging now, and this is
Check.
disastrous. Okay, a4, protecting this piece, and black retreated to e7, which probably makes sense. The queen didn't do anything special on f6 anymore. Queen to b1. Yeah, this is a maneuver I like actually. The idea becomes apparent quickly. Transferring the queen to e4 and preparing this bishop d3 battery, which would provoke some weakness on the king side. So black took on d4, and the sharpest continuation, e takes d4. Queen f6 back. Okay, you just returned to e7, but the position has changed after queen b1, queen e4. It's this move that black wants to prepare, and also maybe try to play knight to e7 and then use the knight on the king side to defend. Bishop to d3, g6, and rook e1. This all looks very normal. It's a very standard kind of pawn formation, and white has got some activity based on the pieces, so it should be slightly better for white, maybe equal, but somewhere around this. And in fact, it's a clear sign of terrible form in this event that Zukolov manages to spoil this position very quickly. Well, knight e7 as planned, trying to regroup and prepare bishop c6. And now he played c4, and this already I don't like so much. I think maybe you should start with knight e5, and after knight d5, if black should play this, it's not if black plays this, then there's c4, knight here, and then I don't know, no move, queen e3 attacking this, for example. And I think the knight is simply worse in comparison to the game on b4 or some other square. In the game there was c4 and the knight comes to f5, and now there's immediate pressure on the d-pawn. Black is threatening bishop c6, winning the pawn, so white is forced to play d5. There's not much else, and I'm not sure that you really want to play this move. It is now a forced move, but I don't think this is really so desirable. Black is ready to put the knight on a blockading square, and this looks rather comfortable already, I think. It's not a big edge for black, or maybe not even a small edge, but I don't really like this for white, so so much. Yeah, rook e8 attacking the queen, and here I think Zukolov got too ambitious. It's not that he didn't understand what he was doing, but it was simply not working. He played knight e5. It's probably that he needs to play a normal move like queen b4, and this should be still around equal. Black can play, for example, the positionally nice move bishop knight to d6, covering this pawn and blocking. So this is a good post for the knight. But frankly speaking, there's not so much going on. It's still very likely that we will get some drawish endgame after the rooks are off and not much happening. He played knight to e5, and I think this is really a case of being over ambitious. He certainly wanted to win his first game in this event, but it's simply probably a bad move. Yeah, queen d6, which is simple and good. The problem is now f6, threatening to win a piece with the e-file, and of course Zukolov didn't overlook this move. I mean, he's not in good shape, but he certainly saw this. But I think he just underestimated the fact that Black doesn't need to take the knight instantly. What I'm talking about is he played now the move f4, and Black went f6, logical, and Zukolov now king h1. And the fun thing is, if Black now would take the knight, which she didn't do, then after this, king h1 actually was designed to prevent this move with the check, right? So this doesn't make any sense. So let's say queen here, and a move like e6. And here White even has more than enough compensation for the piece. He's got a huge attack going, and these two pawns are just brilliant. So this was one line actually being good for White. So the immediate capture does not work. But Hou Yifan simply played a strengthening move h5. And also playing against the idea of g4, of course. And now White simply has no way to save this piece in the long run. He actually managed with exactly one line. So what I just said, no way is not correct. He found a way to save it, but it led to a bad position anyway. There's simply no way to rescue this piece without losing something else, some other material, or compromising the position so much. Played queen e2. The idea is if Black takes now, you again have this pawn duel. Black cannot take because of bishop c4 winning the queen. So again Black cannot take, but she just played rook d8, further improving, and at one point Black will take it. So what Zukolov did is he played bishop c4, still covering this tactically, and rook e7. Here the justification was that after the queen move there's d6, probably not d6, maybe just simply e6 again, so something like this. And here White has some compensation. It's maybe not enough, but there's clearly some compensation, as this is at the moment a dead piece and White has those pawns. They're pretty well blockaded, so it's probably not enough for the piece, but you can at least try to steer up some trouble. Rook e7, queen b2, and this actually saves the piece, but Black by now has doubled on the e-file, threatening now to take it, and this means that White finally must retreat the knight, and now he can retreat the knight without losing the queen. This elaborate maneuver has at least prevented that, but here
Check.
Black simply can exchange one pair of rooks and grab the f4 pawn. And it's not just the pawn, it's also that Black's got a big activity. She's got the open file, an active knight, an active queen, and yeah, simply a win. It all adds up to a winning position. Bishop d3, and a couple of moves later. Here, it was probably better from a purely from computer's point of view. Let's put it like that. It was better to play Queen e5. The computer shows that black gets a really big advantage by means of following Queen c3 and infiltrating the position. Queens on the board with this knight against the king is dangerous. I mean, this is pretty apparent, but it's also very understandable what Hou Yifan did. She had 5 minutes to make, 1 minute on the clock, and if you look quickly at this endgame after the queen exchange, you see very quickly that black has enormous winning advantage, so she just exchanged queens.
Check.
Now centralizing the knight. If white would take it, it's simply hopeless. Something like this. You've got those two weaknesses and simply a terribly bad knight, which never would get anything here. So just a win for black. He moved the king, and now black gets this pawn out of this diagonal and put the knight on the dream square. And this is a fairly easy technical win. This knight is invincible on d6, always covering the queen side. You've got the open file, and d5 is a weakness. And she did a good technical job here, covering all the squares.
Check.
And now activating the a6 pawn is also weak by now, and this actually dropped off.
Check.
Yeah, for a moment this pawn looks a bit dangerous, but white simply has no way to use the knight in support. The rook is always covering this, and after f5, with the potential idea also of rook to e6, Zukolov resigned. Yeah, it's a real nightmare for him, this tournament. And with this win, Hou Yifan won her third game, and this turns out to be a really good result for her. She's now she's still got a minus score, yeah, but she's such a huge underdog in this field. She's got a rating performance now of close to 2,700, so this is really a great tournament by now. All right, so what game next? Let's go with Anand against Lami. Is she playing e4, and Lami going for the knight off, not for the Carjakin, which he played in the tournament up to now, but he lost a couple of games and now goes to the knight off. I think he played the knight off before. It's not a revolutionary new opening for him. And Vishy sticks to his usual guns with bishop e3. And now this queen f3 setup. This we had seen before in this tournament. I'll try to remember in which game and fail. But this is an interesting setup. So all fairly normal. And now we see that rook c8. Black's instantly getting some pressure on the c-file. King b1. And now Lami plays the interesting move a5, which at first looks like a really weird move because it terribly weakens b5. The problem is how is white supposed to make any use of this? If you would play a bishop to b5, trying to block the queen side, then black has the move a4 and uses the fact that the c2 pawn is hanging, and this can lead to really crazy positions, something like this.
Check.
And this now is really weird. If white would take now, if white takes now, then you recapture and get a winning attack. White cannot play this knight to b4 and rook a8 coming. But this is not the problem at all here. But white can also play this move, after which even bishop takes a4 is a possibility. So it's completely crazy, but nothing that white really likes to do. So you cannot really use this square instantly. Probably Vichy here should play g5, putting the knight on a square like d7. He played a3, and this was met by a very powerful response. First a4, knight back, and then the very direct and good move b5. So very good play by Lami. The issue is if white would take with the knight, this is simple, just c2
Check.
and e4 hanging, and this is just one problem. There maybe even more serious ones. And if bishop takes b5, which looks normal, then black has the strong move queen b7. And here we see why first pushing the knight back was important. Now e4 becomes a crucial weakness. Black is threatening rook takes c3 and taking on b5, and this can easily lead to big trouble for white. If white, for example, would he cannot retreat also, of course, because this is simple. If white would play here, if white plays here to have this in the position, then black has the strong move rook a5, and this leads to a very strong play for black along the open files. Yeah, very interesting. You can analyze this much longer if you want, but it's really bad to take. I mean, at least it gives black a huge initiative. So Vichy played knight 1 to a2, stabilizing this knight and covering the b4 square.
Check.
Yeah, Lami took, so very direct play, and here white must take with the knight, and this is what Anand did. This simply gets crushed very quickly. It's directly winning for black. So you need to do this.
Check.
Of course, this is hanging with check, but you didn't have any choice. And we see actually here a very good practical strength that Anand had through all his chess career, really, that he's able to play relatively quickly, even if he's in trouble. So I guess there would be lots of players who, being disappointed with the kind of screw up in the opening, would spend lots of time trying to, I don't know, think about something unproductive in this position, and Anand just plays the moves that are necessary. They are not great and not brilliant, but they are necessary, and he plays them quickly, that he doesn't get into time trouble in addition to the problems on the board. Yeah, basically black is just a pawn up. White has some things going for him, but it's not much really. Black is better. What he's got is the bishop pair and a potentially good light square bishop. Later on, this bishop can get strong, because black is potentially weak on the light squares, but this is a real theoretical thing. And of course the queen is a bit exposed, so black took on e4. This was necessary, and now white managed to activate this piece and has a bit of play with the two bishops, but it's really not much. And here we see a case where a player, in this case Lami, is gradually pushed back from a good position. He played knight c5, which is probably right. Took, and rook c4, attacking this pawn. And I think in this position, Lami should play something else. He went for knight to a5, which maybe was based on some miscalculation. It's hard to tell. It still should be okay for black, no doubt. But I think what he should do is knight to d4, centralizing this piece. And if white now takes on a4, then there's bishop to h4. This is a move that is easily missed, but it's really strong. Simply attacking this piece, this pawn, and it's very difficult for white to cover. You can play a very passive move like rook f1, but you need to be aware of this kind of stuff.
Check. Check.
Very cute trick. I think knight d4 is just better on principle. Take it to the center and not to the edge of the board. Okay, but it was still okay, but I think now really is the moment to go bishop to h4, activating this piece and attacking the pawn. If you would win the pawn, and I think you do, so this is still not possible because of this fork, then you would not only win the pawn but also have the idea to put the bishop on d4, not c4, something like this. On d4 it would have a great post, and this still should be good for some advantage. But he played rook b8, I guess based on some wrong calculation. Bishop c4. But here we got a very important moment, and I think he really makes a big mistake, strategical mistake. This is really a bad piece on a5, and here black should take on c4 simply. And I think it's pretty weird that he didn't do it, because look at the game. He played e4. He was obviously intending to get some play with bishop f6, but white plays bishop d5, and now you see that this is just a strong piece on e4, and this is simply a bad piece on a5. Okay, I know this is very abstract, and you need to calculate concrete lines, but you see that now white is already better, and it's very difficult for black to play this position. He, I think, should really just take here, and then probably rook d8 with the idea to invade on d2 or maybe d3 to f3. It's still very fine for black. White is a long way from using this knight on some decent square, and you control the d file. This cannot be bad. So I think still black is better, but after this, the concrete ideas on the long diagonal for black simply don't materialize. It's nothing great, and now you've got a strong bishop here against the silly knight. So this was really a bad play by black, and Anand now has turned the table. He's better now. Yeah, allowing him to take with the rook on c3 in case of a capture. Okay, capturing on c3 would be really weird for black, but okay. It's still better on c1, this rook, and maybe intends to do something on c5 later. c4 and king a2. Yeah, I need to get out of this check. Knight d3, b3. Yeah, and just this move. How is black protecting the c4 pawn now? I think it's simply not possible. Yeah, now black even lost this pawn. White now pawn up, and still he's got a clear advantage with the better pieces. Now the king on the queen side is also a real advantage. It's often under fire, but here in the end game it helps to support the pawns. Yeah, white can simplify now, get this pawn, and now has two connected passes, while black is quite a long way from even thinking about a passed pawn, and this is a fairly simple win.
Check.
White simply just needs to push the pawns and be alert not to make some stupid move like Anand did yesterday against Hou Yifan, where he simply gave away half a point, but it didn't happen this time. Yeah, and resigns at this point. A very good opening for Lami and the subsequent moves, but I think here knight d4 was probably better, and the real problem was e4. If you take on c4 and rook d8, I think black still has very good chances in this position, and here it's completely reversed, and white is better. So a missed chance here for the Dutch player, and a win for Vichy, who, if you remember, Aronian played a draw, is now again tied with Aronian with a really good score. The only problem is that in this tournament we've got a tournament, to borrow Kramnik's statement from London, we've got a tournament of 1 alien and 13 humans, and among the humans Anand and Aronian are first. Okay, next game is actually Wely against Caruana. A Slav. And what needs to be pointed out, while Wely is playing his usual fighting chess with quite some success, he won a good number of games. Caruana is really having a terrible tournament. He lost yesterday against Nakamura, pretty drastic fashion even at the end, and he had lost before and even was lucky in some games. He easily could have lost against Hou Yifan, for example, also. So we got a Slav, and interestingly enough, in this position we had this before. Bishop to h5 seems to be the fashionable move. Just taking on f3 was the main line when I last studied this a while ago, I must admit, but and this was always very solid for black. If you look at this, what's happening in this game, I'm not quite sure what's the big attractive point about this move. It's simply after this kind of stuff. This is a very standard position. This is simply a position where it's always the question, is it equal or is it slightly better for white? And very often white in the long run will get something with the bishop pair and the slight advantage in the center. Of course, this h3 g4 has got pros and cons. It gains space. It sometimes can be used as an attacking weapon with g5 h4 in some cases, but it's also weakness. The only issue sometimes is, what about your king? White's king is a little bit of an issue in some games. Okay, let's see what happens. Bishop to d2, and this all looks fairly normal, what both sides are doing. In fact, this isn't so normal that black changes the pawn structure in this way, and maybe it's not great also. I think it helped white. One idea in this type of position where white has played those moves is always the bishop transfer to g2. In fact, bishop f1 would have been an interesting move here. When Wely decides to play differently, he plays king to f1 and to g2. So he played this castles by hand, and after that rerouted the bishop to f3, which is also a good idea. It's simply nicely positioned on f3, and it's clear that in this position white enjoys some advantage for all eternity, so to say, while black is just doomed to some relatively passive defense. I really don't like the setup. The general structure seems good for white to me. Definitely after this exchange when you open the b file, but I'm not able to offhand recommend where black should play any better. He certainly can, but I'm not quite sure where to improve. So this is definitely a good position for white. He's got the pressure on the b file, good bishop here, and okay, the d2 bishop isn't great yet, but it can be improved. Rook to b8, a5, so very nice, keeping this weakness fixed. And Caruana took on d4. And retreated to d8. Yeah. So some improving moves. Queen f3. And now bishop to b8. Yeah, and here it's an interesting moment. I think now Wely played a good move, which is not the only move, but it's the move that increases white's advantage, and it's a typical transformation move. He took on d5, which is not the move you in general would consider, the great bishop against the knight, but it simply leads to progress. White needs to make a concrete progress, and this is achieved in this fashion. Black needs to take with the pawn. A rook takes, there's simply rook b7, and black resigns. So take with the pawn, and bishop b4. This was the point. You activate the bishop, and here you make sure that you will win the b pawn, and then you have a clear, let's put it on the board, a clear structural advantage. Black has got lots of weaknesses. We got 3 pawn islands against 1, which is a big difference. The a pawn is not really a pass pawn. Technically it is, but it is just a weakness. d5 is weak. You're on the 7th rank and have the better minor piece, and so it's a huge advantage based on this piling up on little advantages. But all in all, put together, it's a big edge. Queen back to d8, queen e2, tickling the a6 pawn. Black captured, and rook c6 protecting. Yeah, queen b2 is also strong, attacking the bishop. The computer actually likes queen a2 even more, and maybe it is stronger. This is both pawns are attacked. You've got also ideas of e4 using this diagonal, or queen a4. It's also a very strong move, but queen b2 is simple and strong. Bishop moved, and now queen to b4. It's very hard for black to defend this. You're sitting on all those weaknesses, and especially with little time, it's terrible. He exchanged on c5. This probably helps white a bit, but hard to make a really good suggestion for black. White recaptures, and now introduces this idea, queen to b7 or queen to f4, playing against f7, and also you simply threaten to take this weakness. yeah, black protects at least this, but now we've got queen b7 as mentioned, and this pawn formation always entails some risk. If black would take now on c5,
check,
we've got this, and this is a terrible mating threat. And now black is in a mating net and it's over. You always need to be cautious. Those two heavy pieces. I think Caruana actually lost in similar fashion against Anand already in this tournament. So he was certainly aware of the idea. So black cannot take. Played queen to e6. And now white simply grabbed the pawn. He still has all the dynamic advantages. So he's not selling cheaply.
Check.
Queen e4.
Check.
And simply getting out of the checks here. And what should black do now? He decided to now take the pawn and go for some counter attack. White has got now the check and queen takes. And this is the mentioned mating attack in full effect. And yeah, black has some checks, so white needed to calculate this properly, but there's simply not enough. f3 is the key move here.
Check.
Rook check and king up. And now it's relatively easy even to calculate.
Check.
Black gave the check. And now white can even play the very direct move f4.
Check.
Check. King here, and there's nothing. It looks a bit dangerous, but there's simply nothing that black can do. Gave this check. This is
check.
Also over. This king is taking a very important square, and the mating threat queen g8 is not stoppable.
Check.
g5, yeah, and just takes and resigns. Queen g8 mate, queen h5 mate, queen g6 mate, whatever, and black only has desperado checks like queen e5. So nice win for Wely. He's really playing a good tournament, and Caruana certainly with the worst tournament for a long time really. And I think in this game really the problem started early with this really passive position from the opening. This kind of setup. It's also not really fitting his normally enterprising style. Maybe a really different opening would have been more advisable. But this is a typical chess phenomenon. You always know better after the game what you should have done and what kind of choices maybe were wrong. Okay, so we've got only one game left, Carlsen against Nakamura, which is probably the game of the round, the most spectacular game at least. Nakamura going for Sicilian, and Magnus playing the open. This is, he also plays this, he plays all openings, but you would have more expected maybe bishop b5 or knight c3. He's going for sidelines very often. Okay, Nakamura playing e5 and d6. This so-called Kalashnikov variation. And it's really unclear why this is called the Kalashnikov. Maybe the accelerated Sveshnikov or something would have been more appropriate, as really Sveshnikov is the player who more or less invented the concepts behind this line. It's similar to a Sveshnikov, but without knight to f6 and knight to c3. And white has a number of options here, and one of the least played options is g3, which Magnus played, and in fact this managed to probably get Nakamura out of preparation at move 6. And h5. This was played really quickly, 3 minutes. Maybe this even was looked at by Nakamura at some point. But okay, maybe he only takes 3 minutes to play this move. Yeah, h5 looks like a bit of a typical bullet move. The opponent fianchettos or intends to fianchetto, and he instantly used the h-pawn. It's probably playable, and it leads to really original positions. Knight to c3. Yeah, this is fairly normal for this line, and of course also fairly normal in the Sveshnikov. Black threatening to play b4. And in fact, this is the only reason why the Sveshnikov or this opening is playable. It is weakening lots of squares, but it gains time and on the knights, and this is simply a terrible position. On a3 for a knight, so white loses time, and this allows black to get this dynamic counterplay typical of this opening. Knight d5. Knight to e7. Here black also could consider to play this knight to e7. This is a fairly normal way to play if you don't have the moves g3 and h5 played. This would be a normal position without the moves. The idea is that you're able to actually take with the knight on d5. We see at the game why this is an idea. Keep this in mind. Played knight g to e7, bishop to g2, bishop g4, probably good, provoking f3, and bishop back. And here we see that in this setup, let's put this on the board, that in this setup black cannot take with the knight on d5, as there's this fork coming. And this is actually somewhat annoying that black is not able to do that. You would like to exchange the knight also to speed up your development on the kick side, and yeah, you cannot take on d5 with the knight. One suggestion that I'd like to make is the somewhat strange looking move knight to a5, with the idea to take with this piece, and simply keep the light squared bishop. In the game, Nakamura took on played h4. Okay, h4 first, knight c2, and now here, maybe here knight a5 was the idea. Yeah, here knight a5. Let me pull up my notes. I was doing this from memory, but I quickly check what I was looking at beforehand. Yeah, knight a5 in this position was my idea, to be able to take with the knight on d5. He took with the bishop, and now knight a5 and f4. And it's a bit problematic that black doesn't have the light square bishop anymore, as this square can be a problem later. And in general, the light squares are a problem. You can never, or only very rarely, move the f-pawn, for example. Of course, an f-pawn move in this position looks crazy, but there are lines where it might be feasible. And of course, you also have conceded the bishop pair. It's probably not terrible for black, this position, but I think white is a bit more comfortable. Just some sample lines. He played knight to f5 in this position. If you would play, let's say, a normal move, but a move that doesn't do too much, rook c8, then white has a move like queen e2, putting pressure on e5. And something like this already would be a disaster for black, because after the e-pawn is gone, white has, amongst others, a quick knight to d4, and yeah, black's king is still in the middle, and it's not apparent how he should evacuate this piece. Knight f5, as mentioned, was played. We also this also leads to problems with a huge space advantage. I think this isn't really playable for black. At least it looks ugly. While he played knight f5, and white played g4. This is, I think, very direct and strong. h3 necessary. If you wouldn't play this, you simply have no play at all. So let's say knight to e7, terrible. You can just take here and have a big advantage. Black has no play, so we need to do this. Bishop e4, and here Nakamura played knight to h4. Probably he should really go with the check here. King f1 and knight back to e7, and then I don't know, queen e2, knight b4. More than one move possible, and this at least looks a bit messy, this position. I think white still should be better. You can always ask yourself, what exactly is this knight doing on a5? And where should black's king go? White is also better here, but I think queen h4 was putting more problems on the board. Knight h4, white could simply castle. g6 and king h1, and now you've got a very secure king. This is not a great piece really. Bishop g7 was played. Here the computer comes up with the remarkable suggestion f5, and maybe it's compared to the game, it's really better. It looks very loose to open up the position like that, but maybe it is playable. Something like this. But here also black is not in a really great position. White can play something like rook g1, and it's not very attractive to play, but maybe it's better than the game. He played bishop g7, and I think here is the only position where maybe Carlsen could have played better. And of course, this is a computer suggestion. I'm just quoting the comp here. The computer actually wants to take on e5, and this indeed looks very strong. If black recaptures with the bishop, then you've got this knight d4, and you activate this piece instantly. There's knight c6 as a possible idea. You've got the pressure on the f-file. It really looks like a fantastic position for white. In the game, he played f5 instead of taking, which also looks strong, but Nakamura took. And here, with a move like, let's say, bishop f6, I think he could at least hold the position for quite a while. And it's not so apparent how white is going to make direct progress. He can switch his attention to the queen side, and probably should do that. Knight to b4 and maybe a4. White is still better, but it looks really solid for black, at least for a while. I think the other continuation maybe was more forceful, taking on e5. This is also not brilliant for black, but it seems to be playable for a while. He played knight g2, however, and after this it's definitely gone. I think f6, simple but strong, and black must play this sad retreat. What else? If he takes, then there's a simple queen f3 and queen takes f7. No way to cover. Rook h4 is clever defense, attacking on e4. But after bishop g5, black can also resign. Yeah, bishop to f8. And this is really a sad move. Yeah, now the rest is a pure execution. Queen f3. Yeah, I've got a really funny knight here. So doing nothing. Queen c7, and now you've got invasion on c6. Note that black's king has 0 squares, and this white has put all pieces to aggressive squares, and black has absolutely no counterplay. He tried knight to b6, but now simply bishop to e6, and f7 is the point where black's attack, black's defense will collapse. Simply nothing that black can do. He went rook g5, but what should black do? The problem is the move knight to e7. So if black plays, I don't know what move actually, let's say this, then there's knight e7, and f7 is not defendable anymore. Yeah, he took queen g5, and now after takes, Nakamura resigned, as there's simply f7 mate. Like this.
Checkmate.
Quite a cute mate with the queen and the pawns involved. So Nakamura resigned in this position. Yeah, he has an absolutely terrible score against Carlsen. He never won a game in a classical time control, and lost, I don't know, a lot. 7 or 8 games. I'm not sure, maybe 6, 7, 8, something like this, and he never won a single game. So kind of a nemesis. And yeah, it doesn't help that you simply, yeah, he lost a game, Nakamura, against who? Didn't he lose? Against Aronian. Yeah, he lost against Aronian yesterday. And then Magnus, it's not a great experience, I think, than playing the guy you have a terrible score against, and also the best player in the world. Not a good combination. All right, so I can actually say that the tournament is decided. For the first place, Carlsen has won. Not a big surprise, as mentioned earlier. It's a tournament of one person playing like like an alien, and 13 humans. For the human scores, Aronian and Anand are winning, but Magnus is more competing against old records than against other players at the moment. What he's trying to do now is to win tomorrow. If he manages to win tomorrow, not so easy, like against Giri. And if Giri plays solid stuff, not easy to win. But if he manages to win, then he will actually score 10.5 out of 13, which would be a new record for Wally. Kasparov has made a very impressive performance in 1999, where he played reached 10 out of 13 with a brilliant performance. And a draw would be the same for Carlsen, 10 out of 13, and a win even would be an improvement on this already brilliant achievement by Kasparov 14 years ago. And Carlsen is also playing for the 2,900 rating. He's on 2875, so or 74 or something. So he's nearing this magical mark, which actually is what he's doing at the moment is maybe one of the biggest runs ever. Like these two tournaments, London and Wijk, is simply out of this world chess. I mean, we will see what he's doing in this candidates tournament at the end of March, but at the moment this is really unbelievable play. Alright, thanks for watching this video. I managed to make it a bit shorter than yesterday. It's still very long. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back tomorrow for the last round. Cheers and bye.